again. Steve here.
Welcome back.
I hope you're looking forward to another Connected World podcast. Today, we're going to talk a bit about AI machine learning. So, Steve, we've spoken in the previous two episodes about some of the trends that people are seeing, some of the ways to get data to support that. And then obviously, it's the big topic of the last year to couple of years is machine learning and AI, particularly generative AI. So we're going to talk hopefully a bit more practically about this rather than a lot of the hype that surrounds it. What are your thoughts, first of all?
So obviously the elephant in the room, and everyone, or nearly everyone, will have heard of it, is ChatGPT.
Yeah.
We can see over the past year or so how it's taken off hugely, and I think most people will be using it in their personal and work life, and how it just makes everything more efficient, just gives you the answer. But you have to be careful, of course. You have to, at the moment, you have to read through it and check it and sense check and see and check for mistakes. But it certainly makes life easier.
It's an incredible tool, isn't it? And I mean, I just use it all day, every day, as does our boss. But he made a really good point, actually, is that people almost laugh at him for using it like it's cheating.
Yeah.
And he said it was the same when they got the internet at work. Obviously, we've always had the internet at work.
Yes.
But when he first got the internet at work, everyone would laugh at him and say, "Oh, did you look that up on the internet?
Yeah.
Or did you Google that?" And and now obviously it wouldn't be funny. And it's the same with ChatGPT. It's like, "Oh, did ChatGPT write this?" Yeah, of course it did.
Yeah.
Why would I sit there and come up with it? Like I've steered it to the answer that I want. I've read it and I've made it look right, but it's better than I could have done in a lot faster.
It should almost be the other way around. Of course, it's from ChatGPT. Well, why don't you use that?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want to make your life easier?
And it won't be long. But I guess it's like if you're not using it day to day, then you should be. And so I suppose to bring it back to what we've been talking about, we've talked about starting small, doing easy projects, getting data. ChatGPT, you're probably not going to start implementing that. However, it's an amazing tool to tell you how to do some of these projects. Like, ask it some questions and it will help you and it will guide you through it. So if you are an engineer who likes to take on a challenge and build some projects themselves, then it's an incredible tool for actually helping do that.
Yeah, and it'll even give you the code. It'll give you a little button to copy the code, and so you just have to paste it in, and most of the time it'll just work, or you might have to do a few tweaks. But yeah, it's a fantastic tool.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And I think the biggest change it's made for our industry in manufacturing is, for many years we've been kind of banging the drum about, well, we can do AI, we can do machine learning. This is really good stuff. You need to do it. And people have not been accepting of it. They've not been ready to almost believe that it's that it's for them. Maybe they think it's too hard for them or it's not going to work for them. I think the biggest change I've seen from ChatGPT is people are like, "Oh, this is amazing. This actually can do something." And now they're asking us, what can it do for us? Rather than us trying to kind of push it. And I think now people are really sold on this idea that actually AI can do something for us. And so we're really seeing a lot more people coming to us asking now, what can I do with my data? If ChatGPT can do this, what else can we do?
Yeah, and it's just that instance of being able to see something in action and therefore then having the confidence that, yes, I believe in it now. I can see that it's working. And like we said in an earlier podcast, within manufacturing, there is often a wealth of data. So why can't you implement a large language model to help you with that data or provide insights on that data?
Yeah, exactly. And what would that look like? If I had a large language model similar to ChatGPT, trained on, I don't know, all of my SOPs, standard operating procedures, all of my hardware manuals, equipment manuals, and so on. And then you can ask it whatever you want.
Yeah, it'd be like, when you go to a website and you talk to an AI chatbot. I mean, not often. Often people don't like doing that, and you don't often get the answers that you want. But within manufacturing, I think it would be the opposite. I think it'd be even better to talk to a chatbot,
Because
if you
there's no
like.
one to call at the moment, is there? You
No.
can't, so you're right. To have something you can ask questions of rather than have to go and sift through a big SharePoint and find some files, go off to a laptop to do it on. Actually, can I just ask ChatGPT right here through my phone, and it can use that information and give me an answer tailored towards the equipment I'm working on.
Yeah, and we're starting to see software vendors implement these things into their solutions alongside their application.
Yeah.
So you can just go to the chatbot assistant for that application and just ask it something, and it gives you the answer. So technology is moving on quite quickly.
It is. I mean, there's a real race in the product development world, isn't there? Of it's got to have Gen AI in it, otherwise it's no good. And I suppose the kind of running theme of what we've been talking about is this focus on value. So again, it's like making sure that we're doing it not just for the sake of it, but actually understanding the value that can bring to maybe a frontline worker or someone who's trying to interpret and understand data. The thing I wanted to talk about is, I think we talk about AI and ML. So AI, artificial intelligence, ML, machine learning. So machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence. And up until now, I think people haven't felt that maybe machine learning was that intelligent. Now with ChatGPT, it feels more intelligent because it feels like you're talking almost to a person. So people seem more happy to use that AI term rather than machine learning. But for me, like, machine learning still has a massive potential that's underused in manufacturing. So, particularly around learning things like, I don't know, it could be more simple use cases where you want to predict the runtime of a job or predict the quality outcome of a batch. These are real use cases that you can do with traditional machine learning. That actually don't require a huge model, don't require even vast amounts of data. You can the data you're gathering in a typical SCADA application, might be enough to solve some of these problems. And so, although people are getting excited about ChatGPT, I do feel that it's almost overshadowing these almost easier wins that people can actually achieve with data, but it is bringing them to the forefront of people's minds.
Yeah, exactly. And like you say, machine learning is a subset of AI, and machine learning has been around for a long time. It's not something new in the last few years. So maybe you're right. Maybe the way to effect change with this is to have that AI wrapper around it. But like you say, machine learning is something really powerful that can bring a lot of actionable insights for a company.
Yeah, and I suppose typical use cases, well, a well-established use case, I suppose, is in condition monitoring, predictive maintenance, predicting failure. And again, it's machine learning, but it's just like a statistical analysis. It's just predicting how a trend is going to develop over time. But that form of prediction, rather than like a generative AI, is, has countless applications in manufacturing that are potentially getting overlooked. How do people go about deciding what to do? I want to implement AI is the wrong place to start. What should they be doing?
So they've got to start with the problem. So they need to look at their business or their operations and say, these are the problems we've got. List them out perhaps, and then take a strategic approach and look at each problem one at a time and try and quantify what is the cost of this problem. You might also say, well, if I could solve this problem, what would that bring? What benefit would that bring how long would it take to realize a return? Take all these things into account, and that'll help understand which thing to tackle first.
Yeah.
So it's a measured strategic approach is needed.
Yeah, I think you're right, because quite often people come to us and say, I've got all this data, and what can it tell me? And that's really the wrong approach. You know, it's kind of like looking for a needle in a haystack. So it's kind of, well, what do you want to know? And like you said, you need to know the problems that you want to solve. And so you have to start with a question that you want to answer. And then, just like you would in, I suppose, an experiment, you need a hypothesis that, well, you know, Bob on line 4 says we run better when we're running faster, whereas the night shift think they're better if we turn the speed down. So now you've got a question of who's right, and you can go and find you can go and decide the data you might need to make that decision. You can then build a model and you can try and answer that question. And the question might be, actually, it doesn't depend on any of those things, which is still a good outcome. Although you can't predict it, you now at least know that both of you are wrong and both of you are right. You know, it's actually completely independent of that. The thing that makes a difference is whether we get the samples back from the lab on time or whatever it might be.
Question for you then, Steve.
Okay.
Talking about ChatGPT, today you have to be very careful. It'll give you, it's a really good tool like we've discussed, but you have to really sense check what it's telling you before you go and copy and paste it into an email or whatever it might be. With the use cases we just talked about and using machine learning to do X, Y, or Z, can we trust the outcomes that it tells us? Do we need to sense check it? What's your thoughts there?
It's a really good question. And typically that will work by not giving you a black and white answer. So it's a decision support tool like anything else. So you're not completely removing the human from the mix necessarily. So to give you an example, if it was releasing a batch for quality, say, so say you've monitored a batch, normally at the end of this batch process, you might take a sample, send it off to the lab, wait 30 minutes. If the lab say it's okay, you release the batch. So in a machine learning example, you might monitor all the data in that batch, be able to make a prediction as to the quality result. And you might say, well, we believe it's going to be green to an error of 90%. We believe it's going to be green to an error of 80%. And so we can then set a threshold which is decided by a person who's in the mix to say, well, actually, release the 90% automatically, but don't release the 80% automatically. And then the decision is always still with the person in control of the process. But what it means is you can find a sweet point where if you're releasing those batches early and you're saving 30 minutes on every one, and you're right 90% of the time, then the cost of recalling the 10% that are wrong might be less than the time, the amount you've saved from having that 30 minutes back each time. Or it might be 95% or 99%. But you can find that sweet spot that works for you. So although people talk about machine learning like making the decisions and taking people out of the loop, they never really do. They only ever give you a prediction that we then decide which prediction do we act on. Do we act on the 99% or do we act on the 80%?
Yeah. And looping back to our discussion about lights out manufacturing, I guess in that example, instead of the human sense check being someone on site, it might be someone remote. It flags up on their system, an 80% check. Can you just have a sense check of this?
Yeah.
And then I suppose when we're talking about as the technology evolves, that 80% and 90% example you gave, those might move towards 85%, 95%, or as technology improves, those thresholds will get tighter, I suppose.
Exactly, yeah. And people will become more confident. People will begin to trust those decisions, and like you say, the decision point will become less of a doubt and more under our control. But the key point is, I suppose, it's never, even like you said, even if it's lights out, it's not hands off. There's still people in the loop. They're just not on the shop floor. They're somewhere remote. So yeah, and obviously that has big big implications for things like safety of the worker and that kind of thing. So you can tell I'm really interested in this topic because I've really started going into the reads a bit in detail here. But I guess we should put it back to a summary. So I think the key things is that like ChatGPT and this kind of thing has really shone a light on the potential of AI and how clever it can be. But in reality, there are still really specific small applications of machine learning, traditional machine learning, let's call it, that can really bring value to manufacturers, where they can actually start small using some of these technologies we've talked about, things like IoT to get data. They can actually start small, create significant value with a machine learning project and start growing. And these are all steps towards that kind of lights out manufacturing stage. We're not expecting everyone to get there overnight. Okay, well, thanks for joining us. I hope you found it useful, and watch out for the next Connected World podcast. Thank you.